In the world of Silo, the last 10,000 people on Earth live in a tomb. It's a 144-story concrete coffin buried underground, and its citizens are told the outside world is a toxic wasteland that will kill them in minutes. For over 140 years, they've lived and died within these walls, never feeling the sun on their skin or breathing fresh air. They believe they live in a completely sealed system. But if you stop and think about it for a second, that raises a terrifying and fundamental question. In a closed box, how do you keep 10,000 people alive? Every single breath they take fills the air with carbon dioxide. Every day, they use thousands of gallons of water. Every meal they cook, every load of laundry they wash, every child born into the population adds more strain to a system that supposedly has no outside input at all. In a truly sealed environment, those resources should have run out in a matter of weeks, not centuries. The official explanations they're taught in school just don't seem to add up. The truth feels far more complex. The answer isn't just clever engineering. It's a secret buried 144 floors deep, a truth so shocking it could tear the entire silo apart. So today we're going to explore the most plausible theories for how the silo really works and why the people running it might want everyone to believe it barely works at all. Section 1. The air they breathe, a manufactured sky. Let's start with the most immediate problem: air. The silo's cardinal rule, the one enforced by the chilling ritual of cleaning, is that the outside is lethal. We see it with our own eyes when people are sent out. They stumble, collapse, and die. This leads everyone inside to believe that no air is being pumped in from the surface, and that the silo must be a closed-loop atmospheric system, sealed as tightly as a submarine a mile underwater. At first glance, the answer seems obvious: the agricultural levels. These vast hydroponic farms are presented as the lungs of the silo. Through photosynthesis, countless plants would absorb the CO2 from 10,000 people and, powered by enormous grow lights, convert it back into oxygen. Row after row of crops stretching across multiple floors gives the impression of a self-sustaining green machine, quietly doing the work that forests and oceans do for the rest of the planet. It's a brilliant and necessary part of the ecosystem. But the nagging question is it enough? 10,000 people produce a staggering amount of CO2 every single day, and that's before you factor in cooking fires, machinery, and decomposition in the compost systems. Relying on plants alone to maintain a perfect atmospheric balance for a population that size is an immense challenge, one that real-world biosphere experiments have struggled with even on a much smaller scale. A single crop failure, a disease outbreak among the plants, or a power flicker that dims the grow lights for even a few days could trigger a catastrophic collapse in air quality. For a structure meant to last centuries, that feels dangerously fragile. Too fragile, arguably, for something the founders clearly intended to survive for generations. This is where the fan theories get really interesting. What if the farms are only part of the solution? The visible, reassuring part, the one people are allowed to see and appreciate. What if this biological system is quietly supplemented by something far more advanced, like a massive version of what's used on submarines or the International Space Station, both of which have relied on mechanical atmosphere management for decades because plants alone were never considered reliable enough? This theoretical system could work in two complementary ways. First, it would almost certainly need powerful CO2 scrubbers, chemical filters that actively pull carbon dioxide out of the air, much like the lithium hydroxide canisters that have kept astronauts breathing since the earliest space missions. This would act as a powerful backup, stabilizing the atmosphere during the inevitable stretches, when the plants can't keep pace with 10,000 sets of lungs. Second, to replenish oxygen at scale, the system could rely on a process called electrolysis. This uses electricity, which, as we'll see in the next section, the silo may have in near limitless supply to split water molecules, H2O, into pure oxygen and hydrogen. The oxygen would be released into circulation, providing a steady, mechanical, reliable source that doesn't depend on the health or mood of a single crop. So why hide something this important? Why let people believe their air comes only from fragile, failure-prone farms? It most likely comes down to control. The leadership wants the citizens to believe their very survival hangs by a thread, that every rationed calorie and every dimmed light matters. It makes them dependent, grateful, and unwilling to disrupt the fragile order they've been taught to protect. If they knew they had a tough, industrial-grade life support system quietly running in the background, They might feel a little too secure. They might start asking questions about what else they haven't been told. And that's the last thing the founders wanted. The whole cleaning ritual exists to prove one thing, over and over, generation after generation. The outside is death, and the inside is all there is. Section 2. The water of life, a river from the Earth's core. If the air system is a hidden marvel, the water system is an even bigger mystery, and arguably an even more elegant one once you start pulling on the thread. Just like air, water in a closed loop is a nightmare. Even with an extensive recycling program for wastewater, filtering, boiling, and reclaiming every drop that goes down a drain. Over 140 years, you're always going to have losses. Again, the surface doesn't seem to be an option. The world above is poisoned, so rivers, rain, and groundwater collection are off the table, at least according to everything the citizens are taught. If new water can't come from above, the only other option is from below. This brings us to one of the most brilliant and compelling fan theories about the silo's entire design. What if it was built not just deep, but smart? What if the location wasn't chosen at random, but was intentionally sited over a geothermal vent? It wouldn't just be a bunker sunk into the earth for concealment. It would be a deep earth well, engineered from the very beginning to exploit the planet's own internal heat and pressure. Think about the heart of the silo, the generator. We see this colossal machine in the down deep, powering all 144 floors, keeping lights on, elevators running, and pumps circulating water and air throughout the entire structure. The mechanics know it runs on steam, but the ultimate source of that steam is treated as a total mystery, something even the people who maintain the machine day and night don't seem to fully question. It seems pretty unlikely that it's a coal or nuclear plant. The fuel for coal would have to be mined or stockpiled in staggering quantities, and the waste, ash, radioactive byproducts, whatever the case may be, would be a logistical nightmare to manage in total secrecy for centuries without anyone noticing. And this is where the geothermal theory really clicks into place. The theory goes that the silo drills deep enough to tap into a superheated aquifer, a pocket of water trapped far below the surface where the Earth's natural heat keeps it under enormous pressure and temperature. That pressurized steam then screams upward through a shaft, channeled directly into the generator room, where it drives that gigantic turbine, creating a virtually limitless source of power. No fuel deliveries, no waste disposal, nothing that would ever need to be smuggled in from a supposedly dead world above. But here's the aha moment in this theory, the detail that ties the whole thing together. What happens to steam after it powers a turbine? It cools. And as it cools, it condenses back into pure, clean, distilled water. If this theory is true, the silo's power source is also its water source. The generator isn't just an engine. It's secretly a massive water distiller, purifying vast quantities of water as a byproduct of simply keeping the lights on. This newly created water would then be piped away from the turbine room and into the silo's reservoirs, filtered and treated before being distributed throughout the levels. That vast, dark pool of water we glimpse at the very bottom of the structure? In this theory, it isn't just a spooky, ominous pit for dramatic effect. It's a critical cooling and holding reservoir for the entire operation. The quiet, unglamorous heart of a system that keeps 10,000 people alive without anyone realizing how it's done. This single system would solve both their power and water problems simultaneously, completely independent of the toxic world above, and would explain why the silo has never run dry, despite a century and a half of continuous use. Section 3. The secret and the lie. The engineering of control. The citizens of the silo are led to believe that they live on a knife's edge. They see the generator as an ancient, fussy beast that needs constant, heroic work to keep it from failing. Its groans and shudders treated as omens. The threat of a blackout is treated as the threat of extinction itself. Their entire lives are shaped around scarcity and fear. Rationed food, rationed water, rationed paper, rationed hope. But if the geothermal theory is correct, this is all a carefully constructed lie, one so thorough it has survived unquestioned for generations. The silo isn't fragile at all. It's a near-invincible fortress, built on an almost limitless source of power and water, humming quietly along on geology rather than luck. The scarcity everyone feels isn't a natural consequence of their circumstances. It's an illusion, a piece of social engineering just as carefully designed and just as essential to the silo's survival as any gear in the generator. Why go to such incredible lengths to hide abundance? Because a population that believes it is perpetually on the brink of crisis is a population that's easy to control. Fear is the currency of power in the silo. Fear of the outside. Fear of the generator failing. Fear of breaking their sacred pact. Fear of running out of the very air they breathe. This fear smothers rebellion before it can even take shape. Because people who believe they're one mistake away from death rarely have the energy or the courage to question the people keeping them alive. The founders of the silo, whoever they were, seemed to understand human nature with unsettling precision. They knew that if the inhabitants ever realized their home was a self-sufficient fortress rather than a fragile lifeboat, they'd stop behaving like grateful prisoners and start acting like entitled residents. They would question the rules. They would demand to know the truth about the world above. And eventually, inevitably, they would demand to go outside and see it for themselves. The entire social order, built painstakingly on obedience and ignorance, would crumble the moment people understood just how little they actually had to fear. The secret of the silos, air and water isn't just about technology. It's about the psychology of survival. By hiding the silo's true strength, the founders created a population that would police itself, that would enforce the rules and the silence far more effectively than any guard or camera ever could. The entire system is a masterpiece of engineering, but its greatest creation isn't the generator or the scrubbers or the reservoir. It's a perfectly controlled society that has no idea how strong its own cage really is.